Well, I'm just really going to get in the deep weeds here. Of this little thing we experienced 3 years ago, which was there again, is a bioweapon. And how to deal with that is there are those scientists, and there's about 5 of them, and they're all over the world. They're working together at the moment, and they are able to come up with something to mitigate that. But there's no way to make any money off of it because they're using natural things. So pharmacology doesn't have a way to make a profit. So they're going to, do everything they can to keep it down and back and, to subvert it.
Welcome in. I'm so glad you're here today. This is going to be such an exciting conversation with our guest. If you're enjoying this content, make sure you click that subscribe button and hit the notification bell so you don't miss any of our upcoming videos. And if you would rather listen than watch, you can now find us on Apple, iTunes, and all podcast platforms. So just go to your favorite podcast platform, type in the name Journey to the New Earth, and you'll find us there. And the last thing is if you'd like to keep track of what's happening around the planet, but it seems a little overwhelming, and I don't blame you, you might want to sign up for a Friday morning email newsletter. The link is in the description box down below. Every Friday morning, we send out a very short, very sweet, very informative email newsletter containing what we think are the important events around the planet. It's super easy to sign up. It's super free. It's super fun. I think you're going to love it. Just click the link in the description box down below, and it'll be all set come Friday morning. In today's toxic world, taking care of our health is more important than ever. One of the natural solutions I've integrated into my routine is the benefit of mushrooms. And the go-to place for me is Birch Boys. They are without a doubt one of the greatest resources for mushroom products on the planet. Made in the USA, sustainably sourced, and run by an absolute wonderful entrepreneur, Birch Boys has become my go-to for natural health solutions. While they have a wide variety of mushroom products, the two that I use every day are right here. First, I use the ChagaNOW, which is a wonderful mixture that I put a tiny little scoop in my morning coffee to support my immune system. Chaga is one of the most effective immune support compounds on the planet, and this is a super way to get it into your daily diet in an easy to use formula and very, very effective for immune system support. And if you're looking for clear thinking, I can tell you, you'll be surprised at the effects of lion's mane. I use this lion's mane tincture, 1 teaspoon every single morning, and the difference in the clarity of my thinking is extraordinary. I was actually really, really surprised. Birch Boys has a whole lineup of mushroom tinctures. Make sure you check them out when you're on the website, but I'll tell you what, these are my two favorite, and I use them every single day. They are absolutely a quality company built on integrity. Go to birchboys.com and use the code NEWEARTH for 20% off your entire order. Birch Boys mushroom products, I think you're going to love it. And now I'd like to introduce our guest, medical intuitive Lynda Nichols. How are you today?
I'm fabulous. Thank you so much for inviting me. I really appreciate it.
I am so excited to talk with you. This is a fascinating field for me. I know a little bit about it, but I want to do a deep dive with you and find out, first of all, how this started for you and how you work with your clients, because I think it's probably the direction we're going to be going in the medical field. We're going to be moving into frequency medicine, intuitive work with medicine. So start us off with how this all began for you.
Well, I'm going to start exactly when the medical intuitive started, not when all of this started. And that would have been 1973 in an emergency room in a hospital. So, because I didn't know I was a medical intuitive at the time, but I was working in the capacity of a triage nurse. And there was a doctor that I liked, and he was from a different country. So he was very open to different things. And we'd had a conversation, and I had kind of brought up that I could see things. And he said, well, let's play with that. So I would scan a body and I would give him the information I got. And then he would run the test. And long and short of it is it continued to be accurate, accurate, accurate. So we worked together in the ER for a number of years until his passing. And then, quite frankly, he's one of my guides on the other side that I still work with. So that's how it started in the ER. And
Yeah.
we've just done it since then.
So how old were you when this first started for you, Lynda?
For the medical intuitive was 22. The psychic information, all of that was 6.
Oh my gosh. So this has been a lifelong.
Yes.
Okay. So this is what I've been thinking about all day because, I've been excited about this conversation. When you say I can see things, can you help us understand what that's like for you? Because for me, that seems like a foreign language. When I meet someone, I look at them, I don't see inside their body. How does it work for you? Is it a visual thing? Is it a sense? Explain it, how the information comes in.
It's visual, a sense. It's also like an overlay. So I can see the person, but then there's like an overlay of all the systems in the body. And what they'll do is they use energy and lights to highlight things I need to look at. So like if I'm looking at you and say, for instance, you have a pain in the shoulder, then that would light up for me. So it's all of that. But usually and because it's frequency, and so what does that mean? There's a change in the frequency in that system or in that particular organ or whatever. So that frequency is off from what we call homeostasis, which is perfect. And so I just am able to see that frequency disparity, if you will.
Yeah. So before you realized that you were a medical intuitive, you had psychic abilities because it kicked in when you were 6. When you were seeing people when you were a young girl, were you aware that you were seeing a different vision than other people?
Probably not till I was really about 13, maybe 14. Because there again, you don't have the language to express things. And it's not something that a kid's just going to say and do. You just, because you're a kid, you're just living life. So a lot of it, no, it just that's the way it was. And about, there again, preteen, teen, right in there, that's when you start noticing different, because you start having different conversations, because then you've got a girlfriend that maybe you bring something up and she'll look at you and say, I don't even know what you're talking about, and then you start to realize, oh wow, maybe they don't. And one I know how it there was the strangest thing. We were riding in a car and it was with my sisters, and to learn to distinguish that somebody doesn't see or taste something like I do, because we'd gotten yogurt. And this is back in, again, the 60s. And so yogurt was kind of new then. And I realized, because I was describing what I was tasting and my sister said something different. I'm like, it just dawned on me, she doesn't taste or doesn't sense it the same way I do. That's the first time it really struck me that not everybody does perceives or feels the same way that I do. So there is a difference. So that was the first really like, aha, wow, okay.
Yeah.
Mhm.
And I would imagine that you thought everyone saw what you saw up until that point, and then it started
Yes,
clicking in.
yes.
Did it change your behavior or did it? Here's what I would think. If that happened to me, in other words, if I could see what you see, I would have this sense of not a shared reality, which would be a little unsettling for me. In other words, what I'm seeing is not the same world that everyone else is seeing. And now I feel uncomfortable because I don't know how I fit in. How did you end up integrating that information and not kind of losing your mind a little bit? Or maybe you did go through a rough
I
couple of years.
I felt I lost my mind when the medical intuitive really set in. Prior to that, let me just so there it was. No, it was okay. It was just like, well, we're all unique, so that's okay. When the medical intuitive started, and really it was validated. That really frightened me because after my doctor passed, then is because I was distracted doing it with him. And so it would be normal because I had somebody right there that I could lean on and that I trusted.
And you had a relationship and he knew what you
Exactly.
did
So
and it
it
felt
was okay.
comfortable. Yeah.
When he passed, then I thought I lost my marbles because there was no grounding. There was no center point. And I literally ran away from home. I left the town I was in. I quit my job. I went everything and I went on a tear to find somebody to help me. And the only place I knew to go was through religion. So I started going to larger cities because I was from a small area, larger cities and seeking out. I didn't care whether they were a rabbi, they were a priest, minister, it did not matter. And I kept going and asking questions. And I finally learned no one had the answer. And what they would do is, I started getting touched all the time. So my face would be touched, and it's like that was scary. Because and it was them trying to comfort me. And so all of these things were going on. So that's when I really thought I had lost it. And when I finally sat down and calmed down and let them really speak to me, and they said, we're here to teach you, and you have to go within. So the motto was, if you don't go within, you go without. So, and I was told that, and things weren't out. We're talking in this time frame in the 70s. There was no information out there. Ruth Montgomery was pretty much it. Seth material, I think Seth was in the 60s. So that was the extent of what was out there for me to even.
So when you say they,
Mhm.
who are we talking about?
Well, at that time, I just had a team of about 5, I'll call them guides, that worked with me, and I graduated from them. And as you evolve in this, then you graduate your guides or your team. I don't like to call them guides, but your supporters and helpers. As you evolve, so do they. So just like when you're in school, your secondary grade teacher is not going to be teaching you algebra, in high school. So it's the same thing. It's an ongoing fluctuation of in and out who's part of your team to support you. So
Yeah.
my
So,
team.
so had you been talking to your guides throughout your life? Or was this something that you recognized when the medical intuitive abilities kicked in?
I don't think I classified it as my team then. It was just how I saw things. So there again, that as you grow and expand, and again, there's no resource to kind of indicate anything. So this is just how I see things. This is my vision. This is what I see. I didn't refer it to as my team until they started to touch me. And that's when I really got frightened because I didn't know who or what was touching me. I come from a religious background. So that's the first thing comes up. Oh my gosh, you know what? Satan's got you. So that's where I went to where the only place I knew was religion. And I found out, well, religion doesn't know anything.
Yeah. Well, and
That's probably a
that's
good
on
thing.
purpose.
That's me just, there you go.
Yeah. Okay, so you start recognizing that you have a team that's not in physical, that's working with you.
Mhm.
What happens next? Because we shared a little bit before we came on. You're definitely doing some important work on the planet beyond being a medical intuitive. And so that path from being able to diagnose illness or see an issue with the body, that was kind of where it really started for you, but it's expanded. So you recognize this team and you start identifying, is it that they're putting you through, they're teaching you things? Is it almost like you're going through school while you're doing this with them?
No, I wouldn't say it's teaching. I learned from it, but it's not teaching because everything's predicated on the circumstances in front of me. So it's like whatever shows up, I would just ask them for help. And so it was case by case, situation by situation. And from that, then I built a body of understanding or a language. One of the things that's I think is probably maybe not explained a lot of times is when you start working with your unseen friends, you have to learn their language and vice versa. And it's unique to you and your team. So how are they able to communicate with you effectively? And they will try different ways. So that's like some people, they talk about the clairs and maybe they can do one or not the other. But it's so much more than that. That's pretty, I would say 3D to just say it's one or all five of your clairs. It's much more dynamic than that, to be honest, once you really get into it. It's sometimes they would take me places. They would just say, well, come with us. And then they would take me to other places to show me things to teach. It depended on the situation, whatever we needed to do. And I want to go back to the medical intuitive, which there again, that I find kind of interesting in retrospect is when I left and went on the search, ended up in St. John's Hospital in Springfield, Illinois, where they were just starting to do heart transplants, but it was not human hearts. That was the mechanical heart. I was at that hospital on that floor, and that's who the patients were that were around me. So I found it interesting that that's where they guided me to go to work during this process. And why is that? Because it was a Catholic hospital, so whom was around you? Most of the nurses were nuns, many of them. So you work with them. And so then I was working with Sister Gretchen a little bit, and Sister Gretchen was not your normal nun. So I could kind of have a conversation with that in the spiritual part of what was happening with the physical body. So that was another layer that they guided me to that I wouldn't have done deliberately by any means. So yeah, I've not really shared that, but it was really interesting. And that was also my saving grace
In what way?
to again find someone that I could share a little bit of the spirituality part of it and try to make sense of it with someone that came from that also she was actually an intuitive as well. But of course, the road she had gone down because it had frightened her was to become a nun.
Yeah.
Because at that time too, because she was older than I was, she was in her 40s. So we're talking way back when there would have been nothing for her to reach out to and to find some sort of information or understanding.
Yeah. So did you, in this new place, so you're working in this hospital, you have a connection with this nun. How did your intuition settle into that environment?
Like a duck to water, it just became second nature.
Yeah. And so did the doctors that you work with, did they, I mean, if
Yeah.
I was a doctor, I'd want you as my nurse because I've got someone that has skills and abilities that are outside my skill set that can really help
With
me.
on that floor and in that particular department, they're too scientific. They weren't open to that unless it was really, religion based. So no, there was no support there. So I just worked as, a floor nurse with the
And how
patient.
did you, I'm wondering if you kind of like did a little extra something here and there when you knew that it was
Well, I
needed.
could lay on hands and help along a little bit. I could direct, and I want to say that in the of way of putting that is I can pull energy down because I work with energy. I weave energy. There's lots of things I can do with energy, and I would just pull it down through my crown chakra and whatever that patient needed to pull it through my body and to give it to them. So that's what I tried to do was infuse them for, their speedy recovery, health. Then that time, because there again, where you're putting an inanimate object, metal, into somebody is rejection. It was huge. So an infection, there's less things. So I worked with them in that context. So see, it's almost like the powers that be had me work where I was tested. I could test things with my doctor and like get proof. Okay, so I had the confidence in what I saw. So that was the first foundational. And then to work in the other aspect of it medically through energy. So different
Okay.
facets.
So you weren't able to find a doctor that really worked
I
with you
didn't
like,
try to.
You didn't want to. Yeah.
I'd already learned that. I already got the proof with that. I didn't need that.
Yeah.
It's
Okay.
about building your skills on top of each other. So I
Hmm.
got the proof. That's all I needed. So I had confidence in what I could do. Now, what am I to this? Because I'm never, ever going to always work with a doctor. This is about me and what do I bring to the world and how can I be the best at what I'm supposed to do with that I've been gifted with. I don't even know if it's
Yeah.
called gift, but been in, I don't know, I'll just leave it at that.
Okay.
I'm just grateful. Just
Before we move into broader topics, I want to stay on the medical
okay.
intuitive for a little bit because I have some questions. I had an experience, oh gosh, Linda, I was maybe like in my 30s. And I was standing with a group of people, and I don't even remember what we were talking about, but somehow someone started talking about their surgery. And I heard as clear as can be in my head, there will come a time when surgery will be considered barbaric. And I thought, wow, that's interesting. And I really remember it. And I look at the medical profession now, and I feel like we've got a long way to go, or maybe we've gone off on the wrong direction. Because I know that, talking with the Pleiadians or listening to the Pleiadians, they really, when they were in Atlantis and Lemuria, energy medicine was really, frequency medicine was really much more advanced and it was much more effective. So I look at the medical community right now, and my position is I'm not so sure that we're going in the right direction.
We're not.
And so what I want to find out from you is I would imagine that that was a big conflict for you from time to time.
It was because I remember my lifetimes in those places and being an energy healer at that time. That's why I can do what I do now, because that's what I did. And that's not something that I've had a past life regression or anything. Those are memories. I can go there. I know what it feels like. I know how it works. And exactly right. Because it's all about frequencies of bringing everything into alignment frequency wise. And that's why it's so easy for me to see when it's out of alignment or out of balance. So we are not, however, I guess I'm going to go in this way. I am working with medical scientists and doctors. And there are those that are seeing this and they're trying to kind of maneuver things in that direction, but it's slow going. And the problem with that they're finding with a lot of this is then you have the other side that basically discounts them or says that this is wrong information or tries to shut them down with so they're fighting the good fight of still staying in the trenches and doing the work that they need to do. And so, but there's just an ongoing battle going on with regard to this. It's maybe two steps forward and one back, but it's slow but sure. It's just going to take longer than anybody anticipated if
Yeah.
we keep going at this pace.
So what's the sticky wicket? Why is there so much of a push to keep our current medical model?
Money.
Yeah, which is
Everything. Just let me
everything.
tell you that the protocols that are out there that'll take care of this latest little, well, I'm just really going to get in the deep weeds here. Of this little thing we experienced 3 years ago, which was there again, is a bioweapon. And how to deal with that is there are those scientists, and there's about 5 of them, and they're all over the world. They're working together at the moment and they are able to come up with something to mitigate that. But there's no way to make any money off of it because they're using natural things. So pharmacology doesn't have a way to make a profit. So they're going to, do everything they can to keep it down and back and, to subvert it. But I promise you, there are people behind the scenes doing everything they can to help.
Yeah. Do you see us gaining traction in a direction that's going to provide true healthful resources on the planet? Or is it kind of still neck and neck?
let me just go a timeline here for a minute. To be, there again, I can give you what I've known, but I want to do it right now, just see where are we today, because our conversation has an impact that ripples around out in everything. So it's almost like you've got to check the temperature right now from what impact does this have, just our conversation. We are a hair's a hair's breadth ahead with
Okay.
being able to do that. So we will, as far as medical is concerned, we didn't talk about other areas. So medically, yeah, it's slow, but it's going to come together.
From what I can see, and clearly I see it much differently. I see much more of an, boots on the ground, people talking. You see a broader perspective. From what I see, there's really kind of a whole shift about turning our physical well-being over to that institution. People are saying, wait a minute, maybe there's a better way to do it. I just seen some hesitancy, not so much, all in about believing all of it. I have never believed it, and I don't know why. I think I came in not believing it, but I know a lot of people really found comfort in the medical model that we see.
Do you know why a lot of them do?
Um, I have an opinion, but I'd rather hear what you have to say.
Because they don't have to be responsible.
Yeah, yeah. Because it's easier than being sovereign, than being personally responsible.
Exactly.
Yeah. And then I think that, now we're opening up a broader conversation about what's going on the planet and where we are at as, humanity. Are you working as a medical intuitive now on your own, or
Yes.
are you still affiliated with the hospital systems?
Not the hospital system. I am affiliated with doctors, but I have my own practice, my own business, and it's not 100% medical intuitive. I can do any type of reading or whatever it is. So I would say medical is probably 50% of it.
Mhm. So how did you end up transitioning out of the medical system? I would imagine that word got out about you.
Yeah. So I retired in '02. It did get out. I was working with about 100 other doctors. And I was in a position of prominence, or you consider power there again with what my title was. And somebody slipped up on something. And so then the board came together and said that, yeah. So it was a mutual that it was time for me to retire. So I retired, yes, because they were very, very mainstream organization, and it just, it wasn't good business to have me be a part of it.
Yeah, which was probably ultimately a relief for you.
It was because I moved to Sedona, and I didn't miss a beat. And this is really how, and I've never shared this with anybody. It's like, so I'm making a really good salary doing what I'm doing, and I still did readings, but I did them on the weekends, and that's how I got in trouble. I always did them. I took summers off, and nobody knew why I took all summers off, because I traveled around the US and I did put on psychic and alternative wellness fairs, because I was trying to get the alternative wellness out there. And usually hand in hand with psychic, get a psychic reading, and if somebody's doing a Reiki or there's colonics, or just I was trying to educate. So I would travel around and do that during the summer times. So it's like, so I made a good salary. And so that was like gone, one day. And so I just decided that I turned it over to the universe. Okay, you know what? I'm too young to retire. I still need to work. So I'm telling you, that first week I made more without advertising, without anything, than I did in a month at my salaried job. So the universe has just kept it going. And if anybody goes looking for me, they're not going to find me, because I am not public. I don't advertise. I don't do anything. But that has nothing to do with me. It has to do with when you're in alignment with what you're supposed to be doing, everything falls into place. You just have to trust it, but you have to be willing to show up. If they bring you something and they say, you need to look at this, do this, or put in this effort, then you need to do it. Or like I say, just do your homework. As long as you do your homework, I promise you, you'll have all the support you need because I'm living proof of it.
Yeah. Okay, so now people are going to be saying homework. What homework? What's the homework? Give us an example of what you mean by that.
Homework is you need to connect with yourself and you need to give your soul at least a little bit of time every day. And that's where you're present. It's not about sitting and meditating. You could be in nature, you could be whatever you needed or whatever you feel comfortable with, because you're going to be drawn to something. And let that voice just start coming through. And another way to do it is that I've found is really easy for people. And I have a number of things. I have some meditation, they were tapes back then, but CDs that really help you to access the higher self. The other thing, and I didn't originate them, it was by somebody that I became friends with, and he passed to COVID in 2020, but his body of work I have is the Morning Pages by Julia Cameron. If people will start doing that, because once you get the minutia out of the way and you just write all the gobbledygook that you need to, then after a while you start accessing your higher self or your soul, and it starts to come through. So that's what I mean. You've got to show up consistently. So the Morning Pages is the greatest tool that I feel we were given to help people start doing it with being practical, because everybody can sit down and just start writing. So that's the easiest access point, but you've got to do that. And through that guidance, they will tell you other things you need to do, or you'll just get insight or inspiration. You need to do this, whether that's yoga or, they're again changing your diet. This is what I'm saying about homework. It's all these things that we need to bring together to bring us into alignment with ourselves.
Yeah. Yeah. In which I think that if we look around the planet, there's just a lot of areas that it's just we're all out of alignment. We just have lost our way.
Well, we're so distracted.
Intentionally.
Mhm.
Yeah. So you go off on your own, you're working as a medical intuitive. I would imagine you're very, very busy.
As much as I want to be.
Yeah.
Mhm.
So you have this skill and ability, but it's not just that. You have a much broader connection to what's going on here on the planet, and you have a big job to do here in this incarnation. How did you kind of step out of just working in the intuitive and start working on a more global scale?
I really never not. I mean, I've always integrated it. It oscillates maybe there again, who shows up and needs what. I just, I guess I structured it I put it out every morning. And I'm going to give you guys, I'm just being really open. In the morning, I say my prayers, Father, Mother, God, guides, and angels, all that support me, bring through all time, space, and dimensions, everything I need to know, and allow me to serve those and how they show up today. And I just put that petition out there, and I let whoever shows up in whatever manner, whether it's working, again, with somebody that's dealing with grief, or somebody that's dealing with, a betrayal. It doesn't matter. It doesn't matter. I can go wherever you need me to go. I was tested at the U of A back in, would have been around 07, 08. And so I didn't understand how I would say I push energy, and they say, no, you weave it. So I can take your energy. And so, like, if I'm doing a reading and you're choosing to make this decision and you want to go down and you want to know what that looks like, so I'll take your energy and I'll put it on a timeline, and I'll go down and set it in that setup. And then I watch it. It's like a movie. I just watch it. So how does it interact? How does it play out? Is this a good decision? If you do this, this is what will transpire from that. And then you can make a decision whether you want to do that or not. So that's what I call weaving energy. I can take your energy and move it through timelines because it all exists now. So I just take it and I go there and look at it. So I do a lot of that for people as well.
That's fascinating. Was that something, Lynda, that you had to kind of teach yourself to do, or was it just almost intuitive? Like
Intuitively.
you just knew it.
I think a lot of this comes from my past lives, like in Lemuria, Atlantis, and other things, that these memories came, once I really allowed it and sat with myself. And so they bubble up, and I was directed just to do this. So it's almost like you have this, as we all do, a voice in your head say, do this, do that. And I just followed it. So that's the other thing at homework, trust that inner guidance. So they would just tell me, and then I would get a flood of memories of me actually doing and working in that capacity in a past life.
Yeah. So you were able to bring those experiences into this lifetime. So you weren't completely, as some people say, we come back in, we're wiped. So you weren't completely wiped. You came in with previous knowledge and a knowing and an ability. But
Right.
you came in, well, we all come in with things to do, with a mission, with a point, with a purpose. But
But
yours is
I disagree that I'm unique, because how open are you to really inviting that in? I would say, show me. I would sit down and I would pick something and say, show me. And so I would so once I first got a memory, and that the first two or three were spontaneous, and the first one was really the most bizarre, which really sticks out. But anyway, from then I would say, show me something near. Show me where I'm doing, or I would say, what do I need to know? And show me. And that was another way to do it. But I'm listening to them, and they're saying that's part of what I call the ascension codes that's encoded in the DNA. And that depends on the individual as what they program this life for. So there's some people have that where they can activate that. And I would say, like, even they say as simple as now is like, if listening to this and they want to sit down and start doing that inner work, and we'll call it meditation, but it's really inner work, and just ask them to show you. But you can't get discouraged, because it's not going to be on your timeline. So maybe they're going to say, give you an inspiration. Maybe you need to do this, because frequency, food is frequency. That's another thing. Food is very, very important, because it's the frequency, and you can contaminate your body with the wrong frequency of food. So then it's not operating at the level that it needs to. And that means your intuition. That means being able to raise that frequency from within to go to access that higher truth, which we all have the ability to do. So everything works together. You think this is really your word, the frequency of each word, the vibration of, because everything comes down to one thing, is it's a frequency. So choose the highest frequency in anything and everything you do.
and I know, describe how a person would choose that or identify that.
Declare it through your words first. And practice makes perfect. And that's where, that's the homework. You've got to keep doing it and doing it and doing it. So like if you want to, how would I do it? I'm not trying to go back and how I did it. I would start, this is what they say, probably the basic thing to do is for people to sit down with one question. Tell me what I need to know, and build on that. Start Break that barrier first. What do I need to know? Because you have that voice in your head that's always speaking to you anyway. Direct it. Ask it for help, because it's there to serve you. And we have this tendency to, poo-poo it, shut it down, or not listen to it. So if you just honor that voice, give it the respect it deserves, and say, show me something, or tell me what to do. Start simple and build on it, and just keep doing it. And then it gains momentum, especially in this frequency you're in now. It won't take as long as maybe it would have 20, 30 years ago. Right now, it's pretty, impactful, and it can just blossom or basically explode. But you've got to be willing to say, bring myself, and the other thing is bring myself into the alignment of the highest good for all. So you want to set yourself up in the most highest frequency you can. And just making that declaration changes your frequency and your connection. Bring me into alignment to the highest good of all. That's all you have to say. This
Yeah.
is not cumbersome. This is not scary. None of this is. The other thing that, see, they're on a roll, so they're talking. The other thing they want to bring up is like all this protection. People say, well, don't go in this without protecting. The negativity has a frequency and it's at here. And if you're operating at here, you're at the penthouse, it's down in the basement, it can't get to you. So if you want to avoid all the, fuzzbots out here that are running around, then you just bring up your frequency and you declare it. You know what? I will never ever be in the same space as anything that's negative that tries to harm me, attach to me, influence me, or anything. You just make a declaration. Our
Perfect.
word is our wand.
Oh, I love that. I'm going to get a t-shirt that says that.
Our word is our wand. It
I
is.
love that. Let's talk about, there's just a lot of buzz on the planet right now. We're ascending. Earth is ascending to 5D. Can you talk about that? How do you see it? What does your team say about it? Where are we at? What's going on? How can we make that happen?
Well, the lingo is a little bit off. So we come from source energy, and source energy is the highest, the purest energy there is. And if you look at the different layers of things, so our true nature is of the highest frequency there is. So there, it's like a pole that you slide up and down. That's the best way to describe it. And you have people that are all different levels with regard to that. The planet is no different. So it's not about this is where the words get tricky. They use the word dimension, but it's not a dimension, it's a frequency. So the Schumann resonance, which is the heartbeat or the frequency of the planet. So that's the same thing. And it's been, they started noticing it going up, I believe it was in the 80s that I first heard about. So the Schumann resonance. So that is that frequency or the heartbeat. So everything has that. So we as a frequency there again can move up and down like it's like a dial, but we'll call it, higher, lower. So the planet itself is on a mission to do that for herself. Those that are on the planet that choose to do the work, it's not just going to happen for you, will ascend, or we'll use the word ascend with her. So I don't know if I've answered your question. So there are going to be those that are quote unquote left behind. Mother Earth does not stay in the third density. So and I think there's some place out there where somebody said that if you don't make it here on the planet at this time, you don't come back to this planet. Well, it's because she will not continue to live in the third frequency or density. She won't exist in that. She'll already evolved herself. So if you don't make it this time around, you will go to some other place. We'll just call it that. And that could be a physical place or that could be another type of energetic place. It depends, on the circumstances. So what's going on? Mother Earth is ascending, and those that choose to do the work will go with her.
Do you feel like that's why you're here right now, is to assist
Yes.
with that transition?
Yeah, because people need the tools. The tools are being made available for those who choose to participate in them. And in order to do that, then if you choose those tools, you may need a teacher to teach you how to use that tool. So we are, I would call facilitators, but it's up to the individual soul what they do. And we have no judgment about that. One of the things that keeps us down is the frequency of judgment, greed, prejudice, all these things. And it's when you're in the human and you're being taught, because our subconscious is, when we are born, we're like a computer that it doesn't do anything unless you put a program in it. So we're programmed from, until we're about 7. And then we have these negative programs, a lot of them, that are running in the background and we're not even aware of it. It's controlling our lives. So that's the first step. And that's where I do a lot of work with people and pointing out what's going on, what systems are running in the background that's really ruling their life, and how can they mitigate that so they can get out of that. So it's like you've got a garage that you've stuffed all this stuff in for years and years and years, and you need to make room where you've got to drag it all out, and you've got to You've got to purge and say, this is still working and viable for me. I'll put it back and get rid of the rest. In order to move forward as humanity, we need to deprogram a lot of the negative programming, because that's what the other side uses to keep us in that state of fear and want to be controlled, because
Yeah.
it's programmed into us.
Yeah.
That's part of the other thing that they're doing through other medical methods. That's part of that whole scenario, was to imbue some of that programming into this gift we were given, supposedly the safe choice.
Yeah, yeah, unfortunate. And I worry about, well, I know there's hybrids. There's been genetic material preserved. I worry about the contamination of the gene pool. And if we're ever going to be able to get back,
Yeah.
I worry about
There's
that.
help. There's help, outside help. That's that's off-world help. That's going to help with that.
Okay. All right. Now I want to move into something that I don't know where the conversation is going to go, but I'm going to talk about it anyway. I'm on this, for some reason, Lynda, I woke up one morning and decided I want to know about this planet. I want to know what this is all about. And I just started going down the rabbit hole of ancient history. And so now everything in my world is ancient history. I have, 20 books on my coffee table to read. I'm just immersing myself. I'm so fascinated with it because I'm trying to understand how we got here. And to be honest with you, I thought it was going to be uplifting learning about our ancient history, in Little Inky, that whole thing. And I'm just like devastated because this nonsense, particularly the thing that bothers me is the control and manipulation of the population, instead of creating an environment that really nurtures humanity and caters to that creative genius that we have that in us as humans. I mean, we're creators. We have an ability to create that's we've never tapped into because we've been so kept down with this swirling around in all this negativity, this judgment, this pettiness, this control, this money, this whole thing. It's been very discouraging for me. Why has it always been like this on this planet? We're not talking 1,000 years. We're talking hundreds of thousands of years that this has
Oh,
been
it's
going on.
longer than that. But you're not going to find this out there. So I'm asking, oh boy.
Yeah,
I,
I can see you're getting a message. You're
oh
not
my
sure.
gosh. Okay. Okay. There's always going to be, and I want to do this in a way that is being objective. Why is there light and dark? Because it's contrast, and the only way we can learn is through contrast. And and this was not in this galaxy, there was this force that they were given this opportunity to experience this. And basically, because a lot of things that through creation is experimenting, because that's how it learns about itself, is through experimentation. It is an experiment that went bad, basically. Mean and bad is like that's a bad word to say, I guess. It got out of hand, and so became more and more darkness, and not as much, again, balance or contrast. So what they did in order to do with this, as they thought they were doing the right thing, is like, we'll quarantine it. You understand what I mean by that?
No.
So we'll quarantine it and allow that energy to have a place of its own.
So that was Earth.
So this is one of the places they thought they could, because of the way the intent for what Earth was originally, they thought Earth would have the ability to mitigate it and to bring it back. So they quarantine it. So they sent it to jail, brought it down here, and said, we know because it really was the Eden. So there is a lot of truth in weaving out in and out through the Bible and Eden. And so we know, because of the amount of light that is here, it can basically, mitigate it. This is better, it's a good word. But it instead it had such force that it began to overtake. So then once we get into the dark ages, we get into all the other things. And now it is coming back. So it's like a pendulum. But it was quarantined here to that degree, and there are still darknesses in other parts and other galaxies and other starship systems, because there always will be, there has to be a balance. But this was an experiment that went bad, basically. But now we are climbing out of it.
With a whole lot of help.
It's an untold amount of help, unseen help that we have right now.
I know.
We are being held with so much grace by others.
Yeah. You know, the heartache for me, Lynda, is the loss of potential for humanity. I mean, that instead of creating these wonderful things, innovating, growing, learning, expanding, we're just swirling around in this mess
We're
that,
slogging along.
yeah, that is just, it's such a waste of incredible potential. It's like having a brilliantly gifted child who's sitting in their room arguing with a friend or something. It's just such a waste of, and that was not a good analogy, but you
But no, I
guys are from,
understand.
yeah, you're
It
right.
actually is a good analogy.
Yeah.
We are children.
So, yeah, and I worry about that. I worry about, we need to really rise up as a collective and step into our power and decide that we have so much more than what we're doing right now. I mean, you have so much more potential.
We have
But
the
just,
crossroads coming up to make those choices. And Kimberly, the more you have this dialogue and these conversations that get out there, that ripple effect is the more that it's going to help us turn this ship. And it only has to turn a degree or two, and we end up in a completely different place. So this is where we are. That's why this time right now. And the more and more of these podcasts that can get out there to serve humanity and to give them insight, for them to have some discernment of themselves. I'm not telling anybody they have to do one thing or the other. It's completely up to what feels right for them. And we all have our own truth, and our body acts as a truth teller. How do you feel about it? Does your body expand? Does it feel good to hear that? Did you brighten up when you heard that? Well, that's your truth. If it contracts in any way, then that's not your truth. And it doesn't matter what it is, you know, whether you choose, your favorite color is white or black, it does not matter. You have to choose what's right for you in your essence, in your heart of hearts. And because your soul is, let's come back to the other thing they wanted to bring up too, with this, who we are. We come from source in energy. We come from the top. And when we start to own that a little bit, and we're here, on vacation, but the goal is to get back home as soon as possible. And if you looked at that, it's like, what do you need to do to get back home? What do you need to feel good and be happy? And to be that, here's the other thing, is to be with all those that you really, really love. That's your soul family and such. So, because a lot of people right now, because I talk to a lot of people that feel very alone and isolated and separated from that, then start within and start connecting with your higher power, with you. You are your higher power. Connect with you, because that higher power is plugged into God's source. And and it's like a light that starts spreading out now from your center. And that's how I used to bring it down through my crown chakra, and then it came down and brought it as like a straight arrow and anchored into Mother Earth. And you need to do that, because then it completes a circuit, and then you see it just widening and widening. And as it widens, anything that's negative in your energy, it pushes out. And sometimes it used to take me a long time to get this little thin line of white light to come out and move out and then create a bubble around me, and to keep me in that higher frequency. And that may be something that's helpful to somebody. I don't know why I shared that, but that's another way, is to wrap yourself in this higher frequency. And because then you start finding the joy in it. Then you can go into when all of this is going around, you can go into your source yourself and still see the joy in this. We have to. We can't, it's easy to get down in, in the gutter, if you will, and just, wallow around, but that serves no one. And it's as tiring as it can be and exasperating and sometimes almost hopeless, but by golly, we get up and put one foot in front of the other because we're here to do that. We can't, this is my favorite saying, don't throw the baby out with the bathwater. We just have to keep doing the best we can and showing up the best we can today, and it has a ripple effect. And another thing is maybe, just the simple things as you go in and you see somebody in the grocery store that seems to be, having a bad day and you get their attention, you just say hi to them. You'd be shocked at how people are just thrown off that somebody spoke to them, that saw them, acknowledged them. And that
Yeah.
creates a ripple effect energetically in the fabric of everything. So as they say, like the butterfly's wing, to create, what it is, a tornado or a hurricane or whatever. That's really true. So if you set out every day is to make somebody stay better just by saying hi or being kind, just try being kind. Make that a goal. Is I'll be kind to two people today. Those little tiny things, they build out and build out and build out. And we can do this.
Yeah. And that's how we change it.
Yes.
That's how we change it. So how do you see, and this is a question I get all the time, how do you see 2024 playing out for us right now?
We're talking the election. That's a huge crossroads. It's a beginning of a new era. It's the beginning of what's coming, and it's a beginning. That's the line of demarcation where we'll probably see the results of the other help that's coming. It'll be the decision or whatever happens there, because it doesn't matter who wins, it doesn't win. If we're posed, or yeah, we're posed to have this conflict because it's been structured that way. So that is, again, my analogy of cleaning out the garage. That's part of that destructive part. We've got to clean this all out. And that's the catalyst for, in order for things to, you have to, if you're going to build a new house and there's a house sitting on that lot, you've got to tear it down. So
Yeah.
this is what it is. We've got to demolish what the old is to bring the new in. And that's probably the biggest line of demarcation is November for that.
And I have heard that from a few sources that it's all got to come down.
It has to.
And because the corruption is so deep and it's so systemic that we've just got to bring it all down. And then we have an opportunity to build something that will work for humanity.
There's nowhere, because I work in a lot of different factions, government. I mean, I have access to all different types of environments, we'll call them. It's everywhere. It doesn't matter where it is.
Yeah.
So in order to do that, in other words, it's a clean sweep.
I get excited about our potential. I get excited about being in physical on this incredible planet. This planet's
It's one
amazing.
of the most beautiful planets in existence anywhere.
Yeah. To be physical on this planet in a loving, nurturing, creative, growing, building, vibrant community, it sounds like heaven to me.
One thing people don't take into consideration, I think, a lot of times is the animals.
Yeah.
Not other places have animals, and animals are here to hold the light. They live a higher frequency. And so they're here serving us by just showing up and holding the light in this space. And the cruelty that happens to animals or the extinction and things like that that's another thing that, needs to be addressed. And there are those agencies out there, and when again, rescues and whatever, they're really in the trenches doing the work with that. That's truly God's work, because that's contributing to our evolution as humanity is these animals. So
Yeah.
You know, the plants too, because everything has a consciousness, but it's the animals that hold the light. Yeah.
Final thoughts today?
Thank you.
Oh,
Thank you for gracing the planet. Thank you for doing the heavy lifting. We are in service to you and we appreciate you.
oh, thank you. Thank you for joining us today and for sharing your wisdom. I generally ask people how you can be found, but I don't think you want to be found.
No, you can get my website.
Okay. All right. We'll list her website down below if you're interested in connecting with her. Lynda, this has been absolutely fascinating. Thank you, everyone, for joining us. And Lynda, thank you for your time.
Thank you.
Bye now.
Bye.
I hope you enjoyed this video. Coming up next, this is a good one. Or you might really like this one too. Either one of them could be perfect for you. Before you leave, don't forget to subscribe.